So good morning, and we're going to be doing a winter cabin at night, and I'm going to be working on Fabriano Artistico, and this is a cold press watercolor paper, 100% cotton, which I have stretched, and my reference picture is actually an AI generated image that I conjured up, or AI conjured up, I should say. So I'm not going to paint it literally. I'm going to change a few things and things like that. And since this is more of a square format, I'm going to switch this to more of a vertical in this case. So I'll have to add a little bit more sky, maybe a little bit of foreground too. But what I really liked about this particular picture is the warmth of the light coming through the windows and the moon. Now I have a secret weapon for the moon here, and you'll kind of enjoy this little trick. But I have to close this window here, get this out of the way so that I can see. All right, so I'm going to. I've started drawing this out a little bit, and just roughing it in basically, and I'm going to think about what I need to mask, the white areas that I need to keep. Now, obviously the moon is something that I need to keep. I also would like to preserve the windows. Okay, the windows, even though they're not white, they are lightest. They are a different color from the main blue that I'll be doing everywhere. And so I need to preserve these. Now, I'm not going to do every little pane. I can come back afterwards and put the little panes in. I just need the general shapes in there. So that's what I'd like to save here. But let's talk about the moon. Now, you probably can't see this drawing too well. It's pretty small, but or it's pretty light as well as being small. But this is my secret weapon. It's labels, little round stickers, basically. And these just happen to be just about the right size. The most important thing about using this for a moon is this little word here that says removable. That is important. So if you get a package of stickers, make sure that they're removable. They do come in different sizes as well. So I'm going to put my moon a little higher, higher than my reference picture here. I'm going to put it above the cabin since I have a longer sky anyway. There we go. So there's there's my moon. I don't have to mask that. Unfortunately, I don't have the appropriate sized shaped stickers for windows. So I'm going to be using some masking fluid. And I will use a little bit of soap on my brush in order to kind of save my bristles. Sorry for the rummaging around there. Now I will choose a dedicated masking brush. Never do your masking with your nice painting brushes. Always use one that is you can afford to dispose of. Let's put it that way. I don't dispose of my masking brushes right after I use them. The soap is the whole point of that, is I can keep them in pretty good shape with the soap. So I'm going to just dampen the brush, and I will just get a coat, not a thick coat, but I want to make sure that I've got some soap on all of my bristles, and that way I'll be able to sort of protect the brush. All right, so that's ordinary soap, nothing special. And my masking fluid, it's not bad. I don't want to shake it. Shaking it makes it bubbly, and then those bubbles can pop, and then I'll have little pinholes where those things have missed. So I'm going to mask off my window here, just the basic shape. You'll be able to see the image a little better as I start to add a little bit more to it. But there's a wider window and a skinnier window, and then there's like a patio door kind of thing, and I'll preserve that. I could easily paint around these as well, but I think just as a precaution, I'm going to mask these just so that I don't inadvertently paint over it with the color, and it'll allow me to paint the cabin a little more easily too. So I'm trying to tidy up a little bit of my drawing with with masking fluid here. I did kind of a sloppy drawing, but as long as I get the proportions somewhat right and the perspective somewhat right, I'm good to go. So all right, I don't think I need to really, well, I think I'd like to put some on the snow as well, and maybe even some on this. There's like a deck on this little cottage here, so I'm going to put just a little bit on the deck. Where it would get some of that nice warm light, and maybe on the railing as well. Just on the top where the snow is. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of this on the ground as well. Now, one thing always to be careful of with anything that you work from with AI generated images, sometimes you just don't have the kind of reference you're looking for in your photos or whatever, and you're trying to, you've got a vision in your head, and so you ask for a little help from AI, and sometimes you get some wonky things going on. So make sure that you are um, double checking these things just to make sure that they aren't doing something strange. Okay, so I think that's good enough. Rinse that well out of my brush and get the lid back on my masking fluid. And I'll just leave that to dry. Actually, I have missed one little spot. I think I will just put better to mask a little bit more than not enough. Okay, so let's get that out. This brush has a little bit of masking fluid sticking to the bristles. So the solution, maybe you can see where some of the bristles are sticking together. The solution to that will be to take some a product called Goo Gone. I think there's other products that are similar. It's basically adhesive, for adhesive labels that you're trying to get off of glassware and stuff like that. Products to dissolve adhesives. So that'll clean that out, and I'll have to work at it a little bit and keep wiping it off, pinching it with my paper towel, that sort of thing. But eventually I'll get that out of there. So that's about ready to for that treatment, and then I'll be able to keep using that. In case I forget, do look underneath the description of this video, because I put a list of a whole lot of nice Christmassy or winter themed videos that you can check out after you watch this live stream. Okay, so that really won't take very long to dry. Meanwhile, I'm going to go over to my palette, and I am going to look at what colors I'm going to be needing. And of course, I'm going to be needing a lot of blue. So I'm just going to clear some of the other colors out of here. All right, I've got a little bit of blue there, but I think I'll just leave that since I'm going to be using a lot of blue anyway. Now I'm going to use a big brush. This is a really big one. I'm going to be using a squirrel hairbrush, a natural hairbrush. And yeah, I think that's almost the biggest one I have. That one looks like it's even bigger. So this one's a 6. Not that the numbers mean anything. It's about the size of my thumb. And I'm going to mix a big puddle. I want the sky color to be lighter than the trees. And I want a little variation in it. I think to paint the entire thing just with one color would be a little bit dull, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a big puddle of maybe 2 different blues. So I'm going to use a cobalt, as well as a cerulean blue. Now mine happens to be a hue. This is Da Vinci watercolors that I'm using at the moment. So you can see there's a little difference. Oh, wait a minute, what happened between my settings and what I'm doing right now? Just a second. I'm going to make sure that there must have been a blip or something, because I checked all of these settings just before I started. So give me 1 second so that I can get this working. Okay, let me see here. Now I'm like zoomed in like mad. Weird. Okay, hang on a second. Yep, I had it all set. I'm so sorry. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn that off and bring this over so you can see it. How about that? It's going to be one of those days. It's not Monday, is it? All right, so I've got a cerulean blue. I've got a cobalt blue. Both are fairly runny. I need to make sure that I've got enough of each color. So I want to make a bigger puddle to make sure I'm able to cover the entire paper. Now the cobalt blue, I think I'd like to make that just slightly more purple. So if I want to make it slightly more purple, I'm going to go into like a pink kind of color. So this is Permanent Rose. I'll blend that in. Just very, very little, just enough to make that slightly purple, differentiate these just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to begin with my cerulean blue. I find that this cerulean blue looks nice, but I find it's almost a little too bright. Like that wouldn't look like night to me. So what I will do in order to kind of dull that down a little bit is I'm going to add maybe a bit of, let's try some burnt sienna. And that's just, I only put a little bit in, only just with the tip of my brush. And that's just enough to take the weird brightness out of this, the unnatural looking brightness. Okay, so maybe just a touch more, and you can maybe see how I'm only touching the the burnt sienna with the tip, pardon me, of my brush and blending it in, just enough to tone down that color. The one thing I find about some AI generated images is that, man, the colors are they're just not quite believable. AI is pretty good, but it's not there yet in when you're trying to generate an image. So so that's my cerulean blue, little bit of burnt sienna just to dull the color down a bit. Okay, big puddle. Now I'm going to work on dry because when I work on dry, I I'll be able to um, get my values a little bit closer to what I actually want to end up with. So I'm going to go straight across here, and I am a little bit more green than the reference picture, and I'm okay with that. I actually kind of wanted that. I'm never afraid to, well, I mean, I used to be afraid to, but now I'm not, to alter the color a little bit, as long as I am maintaining the value and the overall feeling of my painting. I don't really worry that much about, whether the color is exactly like the reference kind of thing. It used to bother me a lot. I used to worry about it, and I don't anymore. So I've found that substituting a color is not a deal breaker in most cases. It's often you get to make it more your own if you can put in your own colors and things like that. So I'm coming down to where the snow is. So that's my color for the sky. And when I get to the actual snow, like underneath the cabin, this is where I would like to start switching over to my cobalt. Now my cobalt, I'm really going to have to thin that down because it is a little bit stronger. But I'm going to thin that down. And I will put a little bit of cerulean in that as well, just to make it interesting. Now I have protected the light from the cabin, so I really don't even need to worry about that. The deck of the cabin is darker than my blue for my snow, so that too I don't really need to worry about because I'm going to be putting dark over top of something lighter. All right, so at this point I've got the snowy areas taken care of, the sky area taken care of. I'm going to put maybe just a little more, oh boy, put too much, let's try to mix a little bit more, and I put way too much burnt sienna in. So I just want to put a little bit more of the cerulean in, but I can only do that as long as this is still good and wet, right? So if you're going to add anything in, you need to do it while the paint on the paper is still good and wet. If the paint on the paper is beginning to dry and you start adding things in, you're asking for blossoms. Like, you will totally get blossoms. So this is like really wet at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse off my brush, and I will wipe my tape. These puddles along the tape, they can be problematic because they get back onto your paper. That they're going to make blossoms. I kind of like how the paint is on the sticker. That's just accidental, but it really does look like a moon. But kind of a moon eclipse kind of thing. Not a moon, not a bright moon, but it looks kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dryer and give this a dry. It's great when you can cover so much territory in such a, just as one wash kind of thing. Always keep the dryer moving, especially when you have masking fluid on your paper. You don't want to bake that onto your paper. So I keep my this is actually a heat tool. I keep it moving the whole time. Don't want any one area to get overheated. My sticker's actually beginning to curl up because the heat from the heat tool is softening up the glue and releasing it from the paper. So these, when you get these stickers, they come off quite easily. One thing I could have done at the beginning, which I did not do, is to sprinkle in some stars with my masking fluid. I forgot to do it, if I'm being honest. And so what I will do instead is I am going to just use some white paint and spatter some of that on. Now, it's very important that you spatter on your stars before you add on your trees, because your trees will look like they have stars on them, or the whole scene's going to look like it's snowing, and it won't make sense because you have stars in the sky. Which AI do I use? I went to my Instagram account, and you know, if you go to the chat section and it says that you can ask AI anything, so I put in winter cabin at night or something like that, and voila, this is what it produced. And it was kind of just what I was envisioning, so it worked out well. I didn't have to keep asking it more and more questions in order to get what I wanted, but that's the one that I used. Can I share this picture? I think I can. I think I can. I will. I didn't put it into the chat ahead of time, or I didn't put it into the description underneath ahead of time, because honestly I wasn't really sure how strictly I was going to stick to the reference, but it looks like I'm fairly on board with the design. There's the sticker off, and I have a perfect full moon, so that makes life very simple. To mask a nice round moon can be tricky. And now for my stars, I am going to use my trusty fan brush. I like my fan brush for spattering. And so I've dampened it, and I'm just dipping it into my white paint here. These start to thicken up. This is bleed proof white that I'm using, and it does start to thicken up. I'm at the point where I'm really needing to add more water to this and stir it up really well. But I want to make sure my fan brush isn't too filled up, or I'm going to get gigantic little spatters. Let me see if I can do this without getting it all over myself, but I find that if I hold this somewhat close to the paper and then tap it with, I'm using a palette knife here, you could use another brush, or you could just tap it with your finger, and I can get lots of great looking stars here. If you want a few different sizes, I could go back in and not knock as much off my brush, and then I'll get, like, I should get bigger ones, but I have lots. I like using the fan brush. I get a lot of nice little delicate small speckles. That's probably a little hard for you guys to see, but you will see that I got quite a bit of, let me bring this into focus a little bit better here. I'm trying to do a manual focus so that it doesn't go out of focus when I zoom in and out, but there you can see the spattering that I just added on. Depending on how dark you make your sky, that will show up more or less. You could change this picture. You could make this Northern Lights if you wanted to. But I needed to put the spattering on before putting the trees on so that I don't have spatter on top of my trees. So as I already determined, I'm making the snow a little bit more cobalt blue. What brand and size is my fan brush? I don't even think they make this anymore. The actual information has almost worn right off. Ann's Cornell. It's not Low Cornell. It's Anne Cornell. No, Jane Cornell. That's what it says, Jane Cornell. And it is, oh gosh, a 10-0 fan, I'm thinking. I'm sure they don't even make this anymore, though. I've had this for decades, shall we say. But I'd be very, very surprised if they still made this particular fan brush. But I have others the same size, and they work just as well. And so don't worry about getting that exact same one. You'll be fine without it. So I'm going to come back to my palette here. I'm going to take sort of combinations. I'm going to switch back and forth between the cobalt blue and that cerulean blue that I mixed up. And I want to hint very, very, very thin color. I want to hint at some of those trees in the distance. So the ones in the distance have to be a lot paler. I almost get the sense that there's a mountain in the back there, but I know I don't think so because it wouldn't have stars on it. So I'm going to put in some trees, and I'm using this big brush so that all the trees will kind of blend together. But I'm only going to paint with the tip. Okay, so I'm going to get my brush handle up nice and straight, and away we go here. So when I say all connected together, what I mean is like this tree is going to blend into the tree beside it and the one beside that and so on. So it's all going to be kind of one whole forest kind of thing. Now I'm going to be putting other trees on top of this. So I'm not going to make this a big project doing the trees in the background here. I just need a hint, basically, of what they are. So I determine the straightness of it, like the tree trunk, but then I quickly put the branches on that so that I don't have a hard line in the middle. It's all going to be kind of like one wash sort of thing. Now I'm going to go through the deck and everything because the deck is, oh, I made all my trees all lined up there. I don't like that. So I'll wipe some of that off. But it's actually going to go right behind the cabin and everything. So, and remember the decking, like the railing on the deck and things like that. They're going to show the background through it. So I'm coming right down to where the deck is. So all connected together, and that's like one wash. Very, very light. You can tell if you feel like you need to drop a little bit more color in here and there while it's wet, you could do that just to give a little bit more variation in things, but it's mostly going to melt together. All right, so there's also in the distance, there are some trees that, like there's a tree line. It looks like there's kind of a hill. This must be a cabin in the woods on a hill somewhere. So it looks like this is all solid in here. I'm not seeing a lot of sky through this area. So I'm going to continue this up in this area behind the cabin. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to actually paint around the snow on the chimney. So you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm leaving a little bit of snow on the chimney, but I'm going along the roof of the house or the cabin. All right, let's just kind of fill this in. And there's, I don't know, trees here too. So we don't have like a corner of a house right at the edge of the paper. I'm just going to fill this in. Having a straight line that goes straight into the edge of the paper will, it's almost like an arrow pointing you out of the painting. So look how I'm filling this in here. I am going quite wet on, because I'm working on dry, right? I have to work wet. Otherwise, I'm going to be riddled with brush marks here. But I'm going to put the tree branches in. I'm just making them up as I go along here. These are downward hanging branches, so my brush strokes have to be that way, obviously. Okay, so we're starting to get the atmosphere of what's happening here. I'd also like to address the trees on the left-hand side. These frame the house very nicely. Question to the other painters here. Do you clean your brush before picking up another color? For mixing, I try my best, but somehow I always have dirty yellows. Well, when I can answer that one, I always clean well when I'm going between yellows, because yellow is the one that gets contaminated faster than anything. So so now I'm going to come in on the left side and create sort of the same type of trees on this left side. Pretty solid through here, so I have to kind of dissolve those little bits of white in my stars. And obviously I'm not trying to make it identical. I really don't want to anyway. All right, so we've got a little bit of framing, and it almost looks like an overexposed slide or something like that. Remember slides? Now the house, the cabin, there are sort of shadows on the cabin as well. So I'm going to take the cobalt blue here. I've already got some of the cerulean blue on this. So I'm going to take some of the cobalt blue and just indicate some of the shadows that come down the roof. But I don't want to blend it into the rest of this completely, because if I did that, I wouldn't see the roof, right? So I'm trying to get a lot of it covered, but not every little speck of it. And the foreground, I can take, again, the cobalt, I can even start to make some of it a little bit darker, but beside the house is quite a bit of this darker shadow cobalt color. See how I'm holding my brush? I really want you to pay attention to the freeness of my brush strokes, because I am not choking up on the, like, I don't have a death grip on the ferrule part of my brush, you know, carefully painting all of these things. I find more and more that if I am not too precise about what I do, that, you know, everything looks a little bit more free and spontaneous. I just find that painting a little bit more with the handle of my brush, holding the handle instead of the ferrule, I get something that just feels a little bit more natural. It's called letting go, and it's hard. It's hard when you haven't, when you're not used to doing it, right? So you feel very awkward at first, but eventually you get pretty comfortable with working this way. So for you folks that are uh, determined that you want to loosen up, that would be probably my number one tip, is relinquish control over the actual bristles. Hold the brush way back here. And that would be my number one tip, I think, for you. Now, I've got a lot of wet stuff on here. I think it's time for me to dry once again. The nature of watercolor is drying between layers. Unless you're really wanting to create blossoms. Blossoms aren't bad if they're intended. If they're not intended, not so great. But okay, so let me wipe a little bit of this tape off. As I said, the little droplets of color take longer to dry on the tape, and they can cause problems. So I'm going to wipe this tape off, make sure I'm not blowing the little drops around and having those land back on the painting somewhere. My sky was cerulean blue. It had a little bit of burnt sienna in it. Sometimes when I paint, I've developed the habit, and I really strongly suggest this for you as well. I've developed the habit of taking and making notes. So here, I might make a little note on my tape, sky, and I will put cerulean and burnt sienna. Okay, so if I put something like that, and there's only a tiny, tiny bit of burnt sienna, I'll usually put an asterisk just to indicate that, oh, okay, it's only a little bit of that. It's not 50% of each. So my trees would be those were, I'll put snow and sky because I did a different color for the snow, and sky mixes. Not a lot of room to write, but I just need to make notes so that I can understand it. That's the only person who really needs to know. So I've got cobalt and sky color. I spelled it the Canadian way with a U. Color. And by keeping those notes, it means that, you know, if I have to set this down for a while, or if I have to remix the color, I don't have to rely on my memory, which, oh, well, I wish it were better. Let's face it. We all wish our memories were better. But so I've made a couple of notes there. you can make a note about a sticker label for your sky, masking things. Put all your notes around your outside. Those will all get disposed at the end, but at least while you're working on it, you'll have a note. Just quickly checking questions. No, we're good for questions, I think. If you have a question, put 3 question marks or something, or put it in capitals. Just do something unique with your question so that I can see it at a glance. That would be good. And this is cooled down to room temperature again, and it's not 100% dry, but I think I can do the next layer. So I'm going to take the same big brush and the same mixture. So I'm going to take my cerulean, dulled down cerulean. I don't want it too bright. It's got a little bit of burnt sienna mixed into that, which makes it a bit greenish. Just trying to make sure that's well mixed in. Okay, as long as it's not a bright, crazy color. And see, I didn't even rinse my brush here between the blue. I don't really mind if these colors sort of muddy each other up a little bit. See, I can go back and forth, and I'm not worried. They're pretty similar colors. I'm not trying to keep a fresh yellow or something like that. So I'm going to come and add a few more darks in here. Now, some of these darks are going to imply the shadows under the snow, under the snow-covered branches. Let me put it that way. I will come in with a slightly darker color after this and put in the tree trunks. Okay, so it's basically 3 steps: my light, my medium, and my dark. As dark as this background gets. Nothing's going to be as dark as, say, the cabin or the trees in the foreground. Things that are closer, you're going to see more of like higher contrast and things like that. So I'm going to come in underneath some of these bits of snow, and I'm going to even create the illusion of some other branches in here. So the way I'll do that is to just create more of that branch shape, because they're all pretty much leaning in from the right. So I'm going to just come in underneath. I'm making sure that I'm leaving some of that light color on the top of the branches. I'm just getting the idea of extra branches coming in there. Now, I'm not making it like highly detailed or anything like that. I'm really trying to create an atmosphere, not a photorealistic idea here. I just want the general feeling of this, these trees on the right. So this all gets, fairly dark back in there. Now you can start to see, okay, the snow on the roof is showing a little bit more. And I'll come right down into this tree here. It just gets, or this bush, I guess, which gets pretty dark. And I'm going to obviously echo that on the left-hand side. I don't know why I'd work on the right first when I'm right-handed. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's my thing. It seems that I I do that every time. So I'm trying to make an effort to leave the highlight area on the very top. I'm not putting the dark on top of each of these branches that comes out. I'm putting it underneath. And then I'm going to continue and put yet another row of some of these distant trees using this same sort of middle value. So here we go. I am not just going over the trees that I did previously. I am making new trees with this sort of silhouette. I'm going right through the deck again. And I've got to resist that urge to space everything and make it the same, space everything equally and make it the same height and distance and all that. I want to have some variations in here, so I've got to occasionally leave a gap and cluster some other trees. It's one of those things that's just really a hard habit to break. All right, so we're starting to create a little bit more depth here, and I'll dry that, and then I'll start adding in, oops, I'll start adding in my tree trunks. So I am making an effort here to get all the background stuff in there, and I'm going to leave the cabin for last. The reason I didn't go through the cabin, you might be wondering, well, if the cabin's dark, why didn't you just go through it? I probably could have, but I wanted to keep the cabin warm looking. So in order to keep your colors warm, you don't want to put a cool color underneath. When it's a full moon and you have a fresh snowfall, it's amazing how much light there is at night. It's your eyes adjust, but you also have so much reflected light because of the snow, because of the moon. If you get a snowfall and a full moon, you just got to get out of the house and go take a few reference pictures. It's really quite lovely because when the snow has fallen and it's fresh, especially at night, because there's not a lot of traffic and there's not a lot of people out, unless they're shoveling their driveways or something. But the quiet it's like a big blanket on everything, and it just muffles all the sound, and it's absolutely still and quiet after a snowstorm. I don't love winter. I have to admit, I'm not a cold lover, but I do like a fresh snowfall. Okay, so um, I'm going to now darken this up with just the tiniest bit of Payne's Gray. So I'm going to take my Payne's Gray. I've softened up all my colors, by the way, and mix that in just because I want it a little darker. I also want it a little duller. So I don't want just a darker bright blue. I want a darker, duller blue. Okay. I want to resist the urge to make this too dark, though. I need room to build up the trees in the foreground. I need space for that. If you jump too many values, suddenly when you put your darks on, that's all you're going to see. It's like going to be so sort of in your face kind of thing. So let's try this out. I think that'll be okay. All right, so we're going to go up into some of these trees. See how I skipped over there? These, of course, will turn out a little lighter by the time they dry. And I am going to resist that urge to make them all the same distance, the same size, all that stuff. I've got a really dark tree that's going to come in front there as I do this. So I'm not too worried about all the tree trunks here, but so I've got some tree trunks in. I'll come over here to the left side because once again I started on the right. Oh my goodness. I'm such a goof. Yeah, come watch my videos. I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Case you're wondering, that whole expression of imposter syndrome, it's real. Yep. But I probably have more miles on my brush than some of you, and maybe I do have something to offer. So I don't feel like I'm a know-it-all, that's for sure. Oop, don't want to go over my roof. It's got to stay behind the cabin. And I'm going to keep darkening this this little bush here on the right. And I might put a few, maybe a couple of small branches through here. And I'm really up on the tiptoe of my brush. You might, if you're going to put in any branches, you might want to do that with a much smaller brush. I don't see too many branches like that on this side, so I won't put much in there, but I've got a big dark tree that's going to go over this, and a couple of big dark trees over here as well. In case you're wondering, I am working flat. I'm not working on a tilted surface, so I am working flat on my table. And I might put in a couple of darker shadows in the snow here. There's some rocks and things, I think, in this snowbank. So I just want to get a few sort of darker shadows in here. I may come back again later and put a few more in, depending on where I end up putting the rocks, but I'm probably going to be putting my rocks where my shadows are instead. All right, I'm going to put a little shadow on the side of the chimney here because the light side of the chimney is facing the moon and the other side is not. I think that might be a bit dark though, so I'm just going to blot a little of that off. There we go, just so it's a little darker. And I'm going to dry this again. So I'm really doing the classic working light to dark in this particular instance. I guess the real snow lovers are the skiers, the snowshoers, the snowmobilers, the skaters, uh, the hockey, backyard hockey players, that sort of thing. The winters are changing. When I was growing up, my dad would build a skating rink in the backyard and it would last. He would have to maintain it, of course, and get the hose out and wet it down a little bit. But that snow would stay frozen all winter long, and that certainly doesn't happen anymore. Even my own kids, I made an impressive, I have to pat myself on the back. I made an impressive skating rink in my backyard, which was a boatload of work because you have to haul the hose in every time because it'll freeze otherwise. So yeah, a little bit of a nuisance. But I made I was the mom of the neighborhood for having this big skating rink. All the kids wanted to come over, so so that was kind of fun. Um, Now I'm going to take a little bit more. I'm just realizing these trees here, these could use a little bit of shading underneath. So these look far away, but they look a little flat because they have only two dimensions or two values. I've got the light value behind, I've got the medium value or lighter medium value in front, but they don't look like they have snow on them the way the trees at the front do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit more of the blue, not quite as dark um, as the tree trunks here, but I'm a little bit dark. And I'm going to come up under here and leave lots of little white things of snow, like mounds of snow on the branches. So again, I'm kind of coming underneath the I'm imagining where the snow is resting on the boughs of these trees and coming in and creating that effect. Let me zoom in so you can see sort of closer what I'm doing. I don't want you to see too close because up close it's not all that beautiful, but I want to get some of the branches looking like there's shadows underneath the branches. So I need to put a little bit sort of in behind these trees as well, because otherwise it wouldn't look very convincing. Yay me, I started on the left. Right, so I'm not thinking too much back there. I just need some lights and darks. But out here where the trees are in the open, I need to come in underneath where the snow would be on the branches. So I'm working underneath those imaginary snow mounds. I am trying not to make the branches come left and right and left and right and left and right. I have to remember that there are some branches that come across the front of the trees as well. So let there be some gaps that go right across, all right? Don't draw a tree trunk and then put branches left and right. So you can see, yeah, I'm really not doing it all that detailed at all. I'm really just giving the suggestion of those. I need another value in there in order for that to look like it is. So looking like it's got, you know, some dimensionality to it. Okay, so that'll be enough, I think, of that, and I'll just dry it. And I can start, I think I might even start the cabin. So this is going to be a quick, loose interpretation of this reference picture. I could easily do this with a lot more detail and a lot more precision. Would take a lot more time to do it that way, but yes, I could do it that way. It's not really my intention here, though. Okay, so I'm going to rinse out my brush well, and I need some colors for the cabin. So I'm going to take my cobalt, or sorry, my burnt sienna here, and I think that my cabin should be a little more red, so I'm going to take the permanent rose, mix that in to red up my burnt sienna. Now you may have other colors that are more suitable for your painting, that's fine, but I want to create a just a reddish brown here. Hairs. Now that's almost a little too orange, right? So if I were to take a little cobalt and mix that in, you can see I get a good color for the shadow side of the cabin. So yes, near the front of the cabin where most of the light is sort of hitting the front of the cabin, yes, I might want to have it more bright, more clean color there. Now I mix some cool color into this and I have a good shadow color. I'm just mixing a little more so I have enough paint here. That's cobalt and burnt sienna. Now you do have to watch the ratio, make sure that you are, like if you put too much blue in, it really turns kind of black. But I can afford to put a little bit more in, I think. All right, so I've got, I think, a good color for the shadow side and the bright side of the cabin. Now I need to clean my brush because now I've just sort of muddied up my color. So I'm going to rinse off my brush and I'm going to use those two colors to create the colors of my cabin. So I'm going to first come right in under the peak here. I am still working on dry. I find that if I'm working on dry, my values actually end up closer. If you wet your paper, the colors end up so light because the amount of water on the paper dilutes what you're putting down, and then you don't get the strong colors. So this corner of the cabin, let's get this line as straight as I can here. And then the corner of the cabin, will have sharp edge. Now, it's not going to stay sharp right now. I'm going to have to come at this cottage a couple of times in order to build up the darks. But I want to establish the lines here. Now I'm coming over to this bush, and I would like to kind of avoid it if I can. Just come up to it, and that's it. Now there's always going to be a little overlap in, you know, when you overlap another color, especially if it's a warm and a cool, and you get an overlap, you will get a dark line, but that's actually easier to remedy than you think. So I'm going to take a little bit more of that dark color, and I'm going to put it along this outer edge of the cabin here. Try to soften that into the color a little bit. And if my brush is a little drier, I should be able to get a fairly straight line here. That all depends on how wet the paper is. So I think that might be okay. I'm still using this big brush here. You might feel more comfortable going to a smaller brush. But I need to get the chimney on here as well. So the chimney is definitely part of this. And I personally find it easier to paint the entire chimney and then add the dark shadow on top. Now, unlike before when I was trying to do the trees really free and I was using the handle on my brush, I am holding the brush on the ferrule at this point, because I do want to get some shape and control in here. I'm also going to come in with my dark and establish where the deck is and the stairs. So I'm going to come right along here. Somewhat straight line. I'm coming underneath where the masking fluid is, and I want to indicate some of the steps, so I will just put a couple of horizontal lines here. There, we've got a couple of steps. I'll come under the other line of masking fluid with a thin line here. That will be the railing of the deck. Now some of that's not going to show up right there because of the window and stuff. I may have to come back and reestablish that, but okay, there's the corners of the deck right here. And it looks like it's got a couple of dividing lines. That one I'm going to have to do after the masking comes off, but it's helping me to establish. And I just realized something. I had a little lean-to kind of extension on this shed, which I've painted over. So I'm adapting my picture now. I can't put that in easily now on top of what I've got, so I'm just leaving it off. And you thought you were the only one who did stuff like that, right? I think I invented that kind of thing. All right, so I'm going to go now. Like, this is now getting drier. My chimney is drier. I'm going to come in and make even darker shadows. The one thing when you are painting a nocturnal scene is if your darks aren't dark enough, your lights won't look light enough. So I'm coming back to re-establish my darks. building up and making them darker every time. Let's get a straight line here. Probably too far. I want to get a straight line on the corner of this cabin. Like I said, I am not making this just like the reference picture. I'm creating my own. So if you're making a lot of comparisons to the reference picture, mine is not going to look like it. And that's on purpose. I said in the beginning I wouldn't make it the same. So don't judge the painting by the accuracy, because it's not intended to be accurate. All right, so I'm feeling like there's some established lights and shadows at this point. Roger's asking, do I ever switch over to my left hand? Rarely. Rarely. I don't have the dexterity or control with my left hand that I do with my right. I'm not ambidextrous by any stretch, but sometimes when it's really awkward with my right hand, or if I'm trying to paint over something, and I actually do have better luck with my left hand, but not often. Okay, just as a rule, I do not. So I want to build up more. My cabin is still, I feel, far too light. So I'm going to dry what I have because I don't want to mess up what I have. If I want to add to it, I have to dry what I have. Okay, waiting for that to get back to room temperature. And I'm going to come in with even more color. I need to, like, this is way too light for me to make those windows glow, like the lights are on inside of the cabin. I need to be able to really build up that color more. Let me just get a little more mixed here quickly. All right, so here we go. I did it lightly. I know I'm on the right track. I just need to make sure that the value is there, the color value, so that I have the darkness of this cabin, because I know the result is going to be that I will have a stronger light source if I make this dark enough. You wouldn't, like if you're actually in the snow, you wouldn't see very much. You wouldn't see that bright color like that. It's going to end up dulling down. It's going to get darker, all of that kind of thing. Now, before I do more of this, by adding cobalt blue to my burnt sienna, it does neutralize it, turn it into a brown. But if I need something even darker, I could grab my Payne's Gray. Whoa, that's really going to make it a dark brown. So if I take burnt sienna and Payne's Gray, I can make a really nice burnt umber looking color. So I can go a lot darker. I want to create edges. So for example, I want to darken this, and I want to darken this overhang here a little bit and so on. But if the paper's a little wet, I'm either going to make a blossom or it's going to blend and I won't have my straight edge. So I need to, yeah, sorry, dry it again. Not too long, I don't want to bake my masking fluid. I would have liked to have darkened my chimney, so I'm just going to use a smaller brush for this, just to get that a little darker. Okay, it's all dry. I've got my brush loaded up with that extra dark now, and I want to get this that line established. I want to have a little bit more shading there too, but I wanted the line established, and I'm going to come in on this side of the cabin. That's plenty dark. That is going to feel a lot more night-like. And I don't think you're going to feel like it's a brown cabin if I've got this warm color on the front. All right, so I'm going to come under the cabin here a little bit and just darken this deck. I'm going to darken under the overhang as well. Now it's getting there, but boy oh boy, this front is still a little bit too bright, almost like somebody's driven up to this cabin with their high beams on, right? And they've got the front of this cabin lit up like a light bulb. I don't want to lose the lines I've just established, so let's just set them with the dryer. And I'm going to go darker than I have, but not as dark as that. So I'm coming in and really punching up this color even more. I would say that when I see people painting night scenes, they're very timid about going this dark with their watercolor. And that fear means that the lights aren't going to glow. All right, so just don't be afraid of the dark. You'll be fine. So I'm gonna come in here. I may even add a little bit of that extra dark just along this edge here, because some of the dark overhang casts a bit of a shadow on the face of the cabin there. Okay, so that's now getting a lot closer to the correct values. When I look at the reference picture, it's like, okay, this is now it's starting to feel like it's the right value, like it's dark enough. If you take off your masking fluid prematurely, you're going to find that this is really hard to get back in and work around all the windows and everything. It's much harder. So before you take off any masking fluid, make sure you are happy with the values you have here. So I'm going to dry this. Again, nice, deep, rich, warm color. Definitely stands out from the snow-covered trees. I'm sorry your kids are sick, Angela. It does cut into Wednesday morning demos. I hope they get better soon. There is an awful lot of stuff going around. As you know, I'm recovering from the similar virus as well. All right, so when that cools just a little bit more, I'm going to take my pickup tool. This is a rubber cement pickup tool, and I will start lifting some of my masking fluid and see what we have. Now it's going to look weird. Just be prepared, because I'm going to have bright white paper underneath, so it's going to look very strange. But we are then going to paint in. So I always erase my masking fluid with a light touch. I see some people and they're just rubbing their paper to beat the band, and it is so abrasive. So I'm trying to be as delicate as I can with the paper, because I know I'm going to want to paint into these areas again. So I don't want the paper all messed up underneath. Now there was some snow on the railing and all of that sort of thing, so I did leave that horizontal line there so that I could paint back into this. Oh, forgot one. Okay, so my windows really aren't that perfect, and I don't care, because I'm going to embellish a lot of this and get it fixed up, and it'll be fine. So now I'm going to be switching to a smaller brush, because obviously I would be working much smaller. So I'm going to take a small, oh gosh, this is, I think, maybe a 6. It's funny. This is a 6 and this is a 6. You know, numbering systems, they are sometimes very bizarre. If you look at my pinky, that's approximately the size of brush you're looking for. So I want a nice golden glow in my windows, and I just realized in a very important part I forgot to lift the snow. So I am going in one direction here, and I am removing the glow on the snow. I have to go in a different direction here. Okay, so the glow on the snow, that's very important, right? In this printout, it's quite reddish, orangish kind of thing. I might make mine a little bit more golden than this reference picture, because it's my painting. I get to do what I want. So over here on my palette, I don't want to go with a shocking yellow or anything like that, but the raw sienna might give me a nice sort of golden glow. Let me move a bit of this blue out of the way so I can put that a little bit of that golden mixture there, and I'm going to take some raw sienna. Now I may add a little bit of this, that's fine. I just wouldn't use that full strength. That would be a little too wild, even for me. But I get a nice sort of yellowy gold. That's more like what I'm looking for. Now I don't want to put it on heavy either. I think half the idea of the glow is that the value has to be light. So I'm going to try the window first in case I'm a little too wild with this color. But see, I've thinned the color enough that this is giving me a really light yellow. Depending on how sort of how much incandescent light you'd like to, because incandescent light is more yellow than LED lights. So this kind of fits the cabin vibe a little bit better. But I'm going to come in here. Now, one thing I have to watch is this railing here. I want to stop the glow of the patio door where the railing is, because I don't want to have it as glowy. Like, I want a little color in there, but I don't want it as yellow as the actual cabin. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so I'm going to rinse, I'm going to dilute this color more when I put it in the snow. The further away from the light you get, the less golden it will be. So it's just going to be pale. Trying not to overlap my blue if I can avoid it. I think I could go a little more golden. That would be okay. All right, I'm going to dry this, because if I do the railing, the snow on the railings, it will bleed into the patio door thing here. Now I'm going to put trim and panes on the windows and things like that. So I'm really not worried that I didn't get the shape accurate with my masking fluid. So a little bit lighter, so it has the glow, but it's not as yellowy as the actual cabin. Just trying to get rid of any of the white gaps, the little bits of white paper that I might have missed. All right, so I'm going to make sure that's dry, and I will come in with some of my cabin color. and start putting in some of the little details. Now, that won't be the end of this project because we need to also paint the big trees and some bushes and some rocks and things like that. So by coming in and adding those trims, I can sort of square up the windows a little bit better. I'm still not going for total perfection. I mean, I think that for a quick demo that would be not possible to fuss too much. So I'm coming in now and I want to complete this railing. So the top goes right under the snow, and the other elements actually connect. So I'm just going to go right through some of these. Then it feels more like a railing, doesn't it? All right, so coming in again with some of that shadow brown, and I want to create the panes. Now it's getting smaller and smaller and the details are getting finer and finer. So I'm not going to lose too much sleep over this. I am going to try and just get it in quick and not go back to perfect it. All right, let's divide this again. Oh, those windows get skinny. So cross, cross, cross. There we go. Lots of panes on that window. Then we have the central slider, I guess, for the door, and even even a little, I guess it's a curtain or something maybe in this window. So I'm going to darken that a little bit. But that yellow glow is still going to come through. So it's going to look like something in the window. It's not going to look like part of the cabin. It's going to have the something in the window effect. And then I just need to do a few more little window details here. It's reasonably acceptable, I think. Now I'm going to go and add some of this shadow color here. I'm going to indicate the slats, the vertical slats on the building. Maybe you can see that there's these vertical slats there. That wasn't very straight, but C'est la vie. I could use a really tiny brush for that, but if I did, I would be loading it over and over and over again. So by having a small brush, or just a not too small brush, I'm able to load it with more paint, and then it will just keep painting. And I don't have to keep going back to the palette again and again. Yes, yellow snow. All right, so I'm going to take some of the dark, I'm going to add a little more Payne's Gray to this mixture here, and indicate some of the rocks and the tree trunks of the trees in front. So first, I think I will tackle the big tree in front, and it has a few branches and things. Oh, I better not put that in wet paint. It has a few branches and things. The snow on these branches are kind of contradict the direction of the other trees. So I'm going to add some of this on later with the help of some white paint, just so you have an idea where I'm heading with this. I also want to put in like some saplings, some bushes, that sort of thing in here. But let's start at the top. Oh, wait a minute, I'm too zoomed in. Let me zoom out again. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. I'm going to keep reloading my brush as I need to. I need this color to be dark enough to cover all that stuff underneath. So the Payne's Gray is pretty good for that. I will get something extra dark with my Payne's Gray. I like that this tree is sort of leaning in. Part of that leaning in will also give you the effect of height for these trees. It gives you the feeling that you're close to it. You know, when you stand by a skyscraper, big building, and you look up and it looks like it's really small at the top because it's far away. So that leaning in does make it feel like you're looking up and the tree is much bigger than you are. Trying to get that paint on there heavily enough that it hides the texture or the different values in behind. And I'm looking to see where this tree ends, and it actually comes pretty close to the foreground here. So this tree is pretty close. And then we have the little bushes here in the front, which come up and over the cabin, over that other little bush in the back, that sort of thing. I think I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to do that, do that little bush there. but I can switch over, and I did it again, didn't I? Started on the right hand side. I should have started on the left. I know you're all snickering that I did it twice, or did it more than twice actually, but it's my thing. I'm gonna own it. Okay, so looking at my reference here, there's a few little branches off of here, but that's about it, right? There's not too much going on with these trees here, but they have also that leaning in feeling. And I'll bring them down further than that line, because otherwise they feel like they're too far away, right? So you have to bring the base of the tree down towards the foreground. Even lower. Okay. Gotta get a little more color in there. Hide the textures behind. Okay, so a few little branches here and there, which I did a little bit earlier in the blues, but I think I could do some of these in the browns as well. And as I said, I could come in with a few little details with white paint, not anything to fret about. As much as possible, I do like to use the masking fluid, but for small little snow on branches and things like that, it's not something I'm going to worry about. Now, I've got this really dark color, even bordering on Payne's gray here, and I'm going to tuck some rocks underneath the snow here. And I want to make sure that they're kind of angular, that they're not too contrived or pretty in shape, not like nice little polished river rocks or things like that. Now I will come in, I mentioned this earlier, I would probably come in with more shadows in the blue as I go along. And I can definitely see areas where that is needed at this point. So when I'm doing these rocks, I'm mostly using kind of the side of my brush. The side of my brush kind of gets it in there quick and lets me do those angular kind of strokes where it just feels a little more hard, like a rock, if you will. But don't want really nice, pretty organic shapes in rock areas. And there's actually quite a bit of dark underneath this cabin, or like the decking. So I'm going to come in with some darks under there. And I think that has most of it. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and add in a few small branches and things like that. I'll just grab this. This is a rigger brush. Again, it says it's a 2. This I'm going to hold further back on the handle so that I don't have too much control over these little twigs and things. I think they look a little more sort of painterly if I kind of flick with my brush. And yes, you did mention the shadow on the roof for the chimney. They have it kind of brown. I'm not sure it would be that brown. I'm going to use a darker blue instead because it is on the snow. So I'm going to put that chimney shadow in more of a blue. And I'm just coming back to add in a few more little bits in here. It's got kind of the same sort of vibe. I think my roof maybe could be a little darker, but as I said, I'll come in with some blues and create some of that. Maybe some small little branches and things like here. There's like a whole bunch at the bottom of this tree. By crisscrossing over elements you've already painted, that helps kind of unify and connect all the elements within the painting. So little twigs, things like that, may seem insignificant, but they add texture, they can add unity to your painting and help connect elements. It's kind of like guiding the eye around in this lovely little circle here, and that helps keep your eye from exiting somewhere. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit more of my cobalt blue. That's the one I had earlier. A little bit dirtied up. Mix a little of that cerulean into it, and that there's probably a little Payne's gray in it, and so on. I'm just going to get a little bit of a different blue here that I can add in a few places. So maybe below a rock, even behind a rock. Don't need a lot, just maybe a few little dashes here and there. It would be really easy to overwork this. And as I said, I think this roof might look a little bit too pale. So I'm going to just do a very thin wash over this. Let me water it down even more. Careful not to make my chimney run. Don't want that. Got some white paper showing there, got to get rid of that. And so now all I need to do at this stage is I want to add some white snow, but I'm not going to make it white. I'm going to color my white paint. So the place I will almost always use for mixing my white paint with some color is the lid of the jar. So I'm going to take my white paint, let's grab a little bit of that, bring it here, and I'm going to mix some of my blue into it, which is going to give me a nice opaque blue. I think I added a little too much water to that, so I'm going to make a little more paint. Try not to add too much water to it. Problem is I'm trying not to get my white into my palette. I don't want to muddy up my palette over here with my nice transparent colors by putting some white into it. So I have to rinse my brush. So what I have to remember is blot my brush before I pick up the blue. All right, so now it's not too watery. I might be a little too blue, so I'm going to put just a little touch more white into it, and that should do the trick. So where I wanted to have a little snow on the branches, I can just use this opaque color and add little bits of that in. I didn't want to have it as white as the moon. I think that would have looked out of place. But I can add little hints of snow onto some of these branches. Little bits over here as well. So by crisscrossing that tree behind, you see that this one's in front of this tree. So don't go the other way, like don't crisscross this branch on top of that. If I'm doing a branch going from this tree across, now I have to sort of stop where that branch is. If I decide this tree's in front, this one will crisscross the other tree, but not the other way around. Now, it's up to you, but you could potentially golden up your moon a little bit. Sometimes you see, if the moon's low in the sky, it will have a golden, a little bit of golden hue to it. So I'm just going to put hardly any, just a little, just to warm up the moon, just a slight bit. So it may not even be very noticeable on the camera, but I'm just putting just a little whisper of that golden color in there. All right, not as much gold as what's in the building, but I like this sort of nice warm, it's not really warm, but it's slightly warm moon against the cool blue of the sky. Anyway, it's a similar vibe. I think it was fairly successful. I could, add a few more rocks. I don't want to get too wild with all the rocks, but I could put a few in. There we go. All right, so just some little angular shapes in there, and that will read as rocks, I think. Just with the weird shapes and the fact that it's on the ground, it's just something familiar to most of us. We know what rocks on the ground look like, and most of us who live in snow climates, we would know that, yeah, that's how they look, covered in snow. So I think that's going to wrap this one up, and I like how it turned out. This could actually be quite a nice little card. Uh, I could take just a little bit of snow. I've got this weird kind of shadow going through the tree, but I just want its bit of snow there. Blend that in. Okay, little bits of snow coming up the tree, and that's it. There, I think that feels a little better now. All right, let's rinse out my brush here. I'm going to come back and say thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, I have a whole listing of other seasonal, Christmassy, or wintry type of videos that I've done in past live streams, all listed underneath this video. Feel free to subscribe if you're new, and I hope I'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you later.